How's it going, guys? Cracked Rack here, and today we're going to be talking about one of the biggest cesspits on the internet. And I know I said that last time in regards to the app Discord, but this time I genuinely mean it. Twitter is one of the worst social media platforms in existence, period. Not only does it have an incredibly incompetent staff of jerks, but its user base is extremely hive-minded and young and naive, and unfortunately, because of the way social media algorithms work, Twitter and the people who use it have an incredible amount of power and influence in the world. They also use their hive-minded nature to do things like cancel and harass people to the brink of insanity. Twitter is one of those platforms to where if it just got completely deleted off the internet tomorrow, I would actually have a great day. In fact, it would actually feel like humanity regained some of itself if Twitter was just exterminated from existence. So yeah, in this video, I'll be taking a look at 5 personal reasons I think Twitter is genuinely one of the worst websites in the world. In fact, I'd actually argue 4chan, the website full of degenerate racists and sexists, is actually far less toxic than Twitter's user base, because at least those knuckleheads don't try to act superior to you. Anyway, without further ado, here are 5 reasons Twitter sucks. Number 5. It gives douchebags power. The downfall of man, in my opinion, has to do with a little blue checkmark that Twitter gives out to people it deems notable. Because of the amount of social influence Twitter carries on stupid people, those who have been gifted with verification marks believe that they are somehow above others in terms of their opinions and sometimes even morality. Now, you're probably wondering why Twitter is so special in terms of this compared to, say, YouTube, which also gives out verification marks. Well, the difference is simple yet extremely important. On YouTube, users have to work really hard by producing original content they made from scratch to garner those followers and garner an influential standing in the community by having a verification checkmark. On Twitter, you do not have to do this at all. On Twitter, all you have to do to garner a large amount of followers is type bullshit, and not even a lot of bullshit. You just need to type a few sentences per tweet and then boom, you have a decent chance of going viral for whatever stupid fucking reason. Do this enough times and you'll even start to garner a fan base, and I say fan base in the loosest way possible. So unfortunately, because of how simple it is to actually be considered influential on Twitter, you have an absurd amount of people with these blue check marks who act like total jackasses because they think in their delusional little sad minds that they're famous. The worst kinds of blue checkmarks are the feminist/woke types who never shut the fuck up about social issues that don't even involve them, and they act like they're goddamn Malcolm X for regurgitating a bunch of bullshit about social issues like BLM. So overall, my first gripe with Twitter is that it's just too easy to become influential on the website, and therefore it attracts a really overwhelmingly negative crowd of people. Number 4. Jack Dorsey is a gigantic douchebag. Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter, is the most obnoxious CEO in the history of CEOs. Seriously, even Susan Wojcicki is a literal heaven-sent angel compared to Jack Dorsey. To keep it short and simple, Jack Dorsey is an idiot who has zero clue how to fairly manage a social media platform. He and his little group of overly liberal cronies will literally do everything in their power to protect groups they personally consider marginalized, like transgender people and African Americans, which is totally fine, but they only protect these groups. Asians, conservatives, children, people who don't have popular opinions, Twitter doesn't give a single fuck about these people, who are arguably just as marginalized and harassed as transgender people on the internet. And even worse is that the quote-unquote marginalized groups of people on Twitter actually have special powers. They can literally say whatever they want without consequence, but if a visibly white or non-marginalized person claps back, they'll likely get a ban. This kind of racial and political bias on a super popular social media website is honestly disgusting and has no place in modern civilization, quite frankly. And I know a lot of people will be like, oh bro, it's a private company, they can say whatever they want. Yeah, fuck that. Sure, it may be a private company, but it's a private company that happens to be one of the most goddamn popular and widely used apps of all time. It carries far more influence than just being an app, and if you can't admit that, you're kinda stuck inside your own bubble. Number 3, the rules are really overbearing. I have made like 20 Twitter accounts in my life, and all of them get permabanned for the dumbest shit, like instantly. And I know plenty of people are gonna be like, oh sure, it was Twitter's fault. But it seriously was. Twitter is the giant pussy of the social media family. It's where bleeding hearts go to circle jerk about social issues they think are far more pertinent than they actually are in the real world. And with this, you are not allowed to be rough in regards to literally anything you say, or you will be banned pretty much instantly. I've been banned on Twitter just for calling someone a fucking idiot, which is ridiculous because the punishment for saying that in Club Penguin is less severe than on Twitter. If you're a visibly white person on Twitter and you say something rude, you are a complete target for unruly regulations on Twitter. It's genuinely like they're punishing people who aren't whining pussies complaining about social issues that have nothing to do with them. Twitter also has a ridiculous amount of verification standards, and it's almost impossible to operate an alt account on Twitter because it will bombard you with verification requests requiring your phone number and shit, and if you don't give it to them, they'll just permanently ban you or lock you out of your account. There's plenty more ridiculous rules on Twitter, but overall, they're all stupid and limit free speech and free discussion and make it to where Twitter is just an echo chamber of bleeding heart vaginas who want to cry about stuff without getting any backlash whatsoever. Number 2, Standem. Now I kinda hate putting this one on the list because those responsible for this phenomenon are clearly kids, and I'm very skeptical about publicly hating on kids because kids are stupid as hell, and once said children grow up, they too would agree they were stupid as hell. But this phenomenon on Twitter is so goddamn annoying and prominent, I cannot help but talk about it. So essentially, if you don't know, a stan is someone who is a gigantic fan of a singer or celebrity that they pretty much are just obsessed with, and they have no personal life outside of their obsession. Twitter, for whatever reason, is ripe with these people. In fact, I'd argue at least 50% of its user base are stans of some sort. And not even just stans, violent and angry stans who flock together in absurd numbers to hate and destroy anything that disagrees with their stupid little fandom. There is nothing I respect less in this world than someone's valid points about something getting completely destroyed just because they're dissing a popular fandom. It drives me fucking nuts, and I see it happen all the time. The biggest standems on Twitter usually revolve around very cringy Minecraft YouTubers like Dream or gigantic pop acts like BTS or Panic at the Disco, and I have nothing against giant fan bases. In fact, I love K-pop, and I think the amount of production that goes into it absolutely deserves a huge audience. My problem with these people is that they take shit to complete extremes and will literally say and do anything with their dumb little cronies to crush any dissent in regards to someone disagreeing with their stupid idols. So overall, I fucking hate Standem, and if you're someone who's a giant stan of someone to the point where you emulate them and shit, grow up. Even if you're like a 14-year-old child and do this, grow up. Modeling yourself after someone else is great, but modeling yourself off of a superficial act of a celebrity is a massive waste of your short life. And lastly, number 1, gender double standards. So I know at this point I must sound like the biggest, douchiest basement dweller in the world. But since Twitter is pretty much 90% comprised of various social issues, it makes perfect sense to make this issue number 1. So what exactly do I mean by gender double standards? Well, most of Twitter is comprised of very normie-esque radical feminists who are not free thinkers at all about anything and tend to flock in giant numbers to any thread that supports their very narrow-minded biases. Because of this, women, particularly those of certain social justice groups, kind of have special privileges on Twitter, at least socially. For example, if someone calls a woman ugly on Twitter or insults one of her body parts, there will be a gigantic thread of people just absolutely hating on the man who said this about a woman, calling him a disgusting pig, a sexist, and a horrible person. I believe these kinds of scenarios have even ruined lives and careers. But if a woman insults a man's body parts or appearance, 98% of threads relating to it will be about how the woman who said that is a powerful queen, and that the man deserved what he got because he's a man. A better example of this would be, say, a man says a random woman on Twitter is fat or ugly. The responses will all be condemning that man, but women pretty much get a complete free pass on Twitter to personally insult a man however the hell they want to. Women will find it totally appropriate on Twitter to say that a 16 or 17-year-old boy who said something bad about a woman on Twitter has a tiny cock or something. And yes, I've seen this scenario play out many times. I am someone who fucking despises double standards, and I honestly hope all the women on Twitter who act like this get their comeuppance someday, at least on the internet. Like Mr. Dorsey, you cannot have a gigantic platform like Twitter where those who are deemed woke get an absurd amount of power against those who disagree with them. Right now, all of these issues I listed today are relatively petty, but if Twitter grows even larger than it is now in the future and things get worse, Mr. Dorsey will be responsible for an extremely toxic and entitled generation of children who think that as long as they stick with the popular opinion, they'll be immune to criticism. Anyway, that was 5 reasons I fucking despise Twitter. If you agree with this list, like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more content. Next video will probably be 5 reasons I hate